All right, welcome back to Waste Some Time with Jason Green. I am Jason Green, bringing you brand new interviews every Monday and Friday right here on YouTube. So you got to make sure you subscribe so you know when we have that. And I'm really excited about today's guest. I say that a lot, but I'm a big fan of Steve Whiteman from the band Kix, and he's been long overdue to record a solo album. He has one out right now. You can buy it right now. It's called You're Welcome. We're going to talk to Steve about the solo record, and we're going to talk about 40 years of Kix. Can you believe it's been 40 years? All that and more right after this. Just wanna waste some time with you. Sometimes it seems too good to be true. Nobody I'd rather waste time with than you. All right, here he is, Steve Whiteman. Oh, hold on. There he is.
Let's waste some time.
Waste a little time. You know, Steve, you could have never have thought 40 years ago when the first Kix record comes out that you would be sitting in your living room or wherever you are speaking to people all day long to promote.
Hell no. I mean, I wouldn't have known this a year ago, to tell you the truth. This whole solo record just kind of fell into my lap. It was just it was a whim of an idea when Jimmy Chalfant and Brad Divins invited me to come to their studio. They were recording just cover songs for Facebook and throwing them out there. And Jimmy mentioned to Brad that I was sitting on a pile of songs that I would probably be interested in recording them. And Brad said, well, bring them over. Let's hear them. So we sat down and listened to all 12 of the tracks. And Brad said, let's record them all. I said, we're doing a solo record, aren't we? He goes, yep. So that's pretty much how it started.
Here's the record right here. Steve, I want to tell you and you're the art director on this record as well.
Yeah, you can tell.
Not only at different points did you play every instrument on the record, you also designed the art.
It wasn't that hard.
Well, maybe not the art, but the instruments, that's a bit of a challenge to play everything on your own record.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play everything on the record, but I played everything on the demos. And when we got to the studio, I was lucky enough to have Bob Perry come in and add some guitar, some rhythm, and most of the leads on there. Dean Kramer from my old band Funny Money come in and played some solos as well. I was lucky enough that Jimmy was already involved, so he said, "Let me do some drums." I said, "That's fine, but I want to play a couple of tracks too." And I got to play some bass, and I got to play a lot of rhythm guitar and all the vocals. And it was a weird record to put together because of the virus. So, I mean, Jimmy had to do most of his drums from home and send the files to Brad. I did all the vocals from home, and but somehow it worked.
A couple of the things that I like about this record is, one, it does not sound like something that was recorded, people sending in parts. It has the live band feel. You won't know that this is a record made during a pandemic, so to speak. And
well, I have to give Brad and Bob a lot of credit there, because Bob Perry come in and said, well, this song needs this guitar and this amp setup. And I would have just used plugins, but he said, oh, hell no. These songs were screaming for the right instrument and the right sound and all that. So him and Brad were really essential in making it sound great.
And it definitely shows. The other thing I really like about this record is that you didn't go and put out a depressing pandemic record. Some people are home and they're bitching and moaning, and you didn't do that. You gave, I think, what fans would like. Sure, it's a little different than Kix, but I think that's why it's a solo record. But
exactly,
there's not enough songs about prick teasers anymore, Steve.
I mean, it's juvenile as hell, and that's intentional. That's how I write. I don't write for any one project or any one genre. I just sit down in my little studio and I write songs. And these are the 12 that fell out of me in the past couple years. So I try to keep it light. I don't want to preach like Kix. We've never been a preachy band. We're not going to tell people how to live or what to do. We just want to make them have a little joy in their life for a little while.
This is a fun record. It's an easy listen. I remember a long time ago, Rick Springfield, the great Rick Springfield, said, if you can't tell a song in 3.5 minutes, you probably don't have to tell it.
Exactly. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, these songs you get in, you get out. It's a fun listen, and I think fans of Kix won't be disappointed, and just fans of rock and roll will like it. I want to make sure we tell people that it is out right now. You can go into the description, you click on the link, and just like that, you got the brand new solo record. One of the things I want to ask you, Steve, is so you're talking about writing this record. And so one of the odd things about Kix was that your former bass player, Donnie, he
Mhm.
wrote a lot of the songs, but with
Mhm.
lots of outside songwriters. And it's so puzzling to me that
Mhm.
over your career, and I'm sure to you too, is that how come they kept bringing in outside guys and you guys would get maybe a song per record. And so why did that happen for so long?
Well, for one thing, he was quite a gifted songwriter, and I don't know, he never really wanted to write with us. I don't know if he didn't feel we had it in us, or he just wanted to. That was his way of controlling everything, because he was a very controlling guy, um, and I guess he felt more confident writing with outside writers. But he really didn't welcome us to contribute much. I mean, even he had to write all the melodies to the songs. He used to help Ronnie and Brian with their solos. I mean, he was just such a controlling guy. And after a while, he just wore us out, that we stopped trying to write for the band because we knew it was futile.
Yeah, and which must make having this solo record so much more rewarding because these are your songs.
Absolutely. Yeah, and even the Rock Your Face Off album it just felt very liberating to be able to do a whole record without Donnie's involvement, and people accepted it and loved it, and it turned out great. So, having Mark and Taylor Rhodes and the rest of the guys able to all get together in a room and contribute all together was the first time we'd ever made a record like that.
Yeah, because when you guys reunited, you reunited without Donnie. That was a band decision. That's around 2003.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys really got to show, listen, after all those years of playing Kix, you guys know what to do. You guys are all seasoned musicians and have also played in other projects. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think fans were happy to hear songs that you wrote.
Yeah, you're right. And a lot of people are asking me or saying, "Well, this isn't really your first solo record because you had Funny Money," which I don't consider that a solo record. When I was doing those records, I did write most of the material, but I wanted it to be a band situation. So this is actually my first solo record under my name.
Right. Yeah. You have the final say. This is your project. Whereas
Yeah.
Funny Money, you still were a band, so that
Yes.
you made decisions together. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I really do think that you guys, I got to say, before we get into talking about Kix, it's amazing that 40 years later, you guys still sound as good as you do. Play you especially, Steve. I don't know how you do it. You seem like you have the energy of a 16-year-old on stage, and your voice, you haven't lost it. Not everyone can say that.
Well, the reason I'm still able to do it is I work out. That's why I'm wearing a hat. I just got done working out, so I'm kind of scummy right now. But taking good care of ourselves, I think, has a lot to do with that. And I taught vocals for 25 years, so that kept my voice in pretty good shape. I mean, I wouldn't say that my voice is as good as it was when I was in my 20s and 30s, but I've been able to maintain, and that just comes through discipline, taking it very seriously, working with it. It's a craft, and you got to use it or lose it. So all through the pandemic, I was doing all kinds of vocal workouts and singing shows on weekends all by myself in the basement, jumping around like an idiot. So that's what you got to do to hold on to it.
Yeah, and I know that when you guys did the Blow My Fuse anniversary, you were saying some of these songs are pretty high. You probably were expecting to sing these again 20 years later.
I really was not, especially Piece of the Pie. I don't think we ever played that as a band. So pulling that one out, there was a couple of other ones that were challenging, but I worked on them. I took them, I tore them apart, and I would go to the guys and go, we need to change just a couple things up so we can pull this off. But for the most part, I was able to pull it off.
And and that's another great thing about Kix. You guys give the fans, what they want. You give fun things like playing that full album, and you guys, you didn't have some of those dramas other bands had. You didn't have two Kixes, but for the most part, you've kept the core lineup. Obviously, your guitar player Ronnie, as he's had some issues with substance. And he's had to take some time off. Maybe traveling isn't always the best thing for him. And other than that, you, Brian, and Jimmy, you've kept you've kept that core, and the band has that sound. Your new bass player, I call him new, but he's been in the band for quite some time.
Yes, he has.
He's great. Also, addition to the band. So let's talk a little bit about. It's been 40 years. it amazes me since that first Kix album. And so here it is. And so there's a couple things. When I first heard Kix, I'm a little bit younger. I saw Headbangers Ball and I saw the Cold Blood video, and I said, wow, this is a great new band. Having no idea that there was already 3 records before this.
You weren't alone.
Yeah, I think a lot of people felt that way. And so people started to dive backwards. And as I started to meet people, people would tell me, you have no idea how influential Kix was in the bands that came later and on that scene. And if you look at this neon green logo, and there's a song on this record, and you already know where I'm going with this. There's a song on this record called Poison. Coincidence. And people were telling me that for ages. Anyone who was in the industry or in the know said, well, they're from the East Coast. Kix is from the East Coast. Kix had a record out long before them. They open shows. They go to California, and there's a lot of similarities.
I guess we should be flattered by them lifting some of our moves and some of our ideas, and even probably getting the name of their band off our album. But they actually they were friends, and when they decided to pack up and move to Beverly, when we were desperate to get out that way, and those guys were starting to pop in the LA scene, and they hooked us up with some promoters and some clubs. So they helped get us started out in the Los Angeles area. So yeah, a lot of people bring that up, that they lifted some of our stuff, but those guys also worked our asses off, and they deserve everything they got, because I know how hard it is to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's good to give credit to you guys, but at the same time, of course, they went in their own path and made it work.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, this record's produced by Tom Allom. I think that's how you say his name, right?
Tom Allom.
Yeah. And this is a legendary guy who, produced British Steel, was a sound engineer on the early Black Sabbath records. And so you guys are young. This is 1981. You probably recorded in 80. What's it like going into a studio for the first time professionally?
It's daunting. I mean, we're just a bunch of rednecks from Maryland, and it happened so fast. We had an A&R guy come down to Waldorf, Maryland to check us out, and he loved us and flew us up to New York City. A week later, we got signed that day, and then we find ourselves going into Atlantic Studios in New York City to make our first album with Tom Allom, who just come off a Judas Priest album. So, we're like pinching ourselves, like, is this really happening? Because it really happened fast. And, walking into Atlantic Studios and seeing that huge console and Tom Allom sitting there and the engineer, is like, this is really happening. And it's kind of surreal until you get into the nuts and bolts and start making the music, and then it's all business.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I love when I see Kix live now. I love when you kind of, this is not something new. You talk a little bit about the career of the band from album to album.
Oh, yeah.
And I think fans really kind of enjoyed to hear, because you got to be riding high and thinking, okay, this is it. We've got this major label, we got this major record, and we're
major
just
management. We had everything in line, but the record company had no clue what to do with us.
And also you guys you're ahead of your time for what you do. I feel, the bands that you were playing with later weren't around. I
agree. Yeah. They didn't know what to do with us. I mean, they didn't know if we were AC/DC or Cheap Trick. They didn't know how to promote us or how to sell us. But, we just continued on building up our fan base on the East Coast. And obviously the records helped boost our fan base and got us, it inched us further along. It didn't really catapult us. Yeah,
you're right. The East Coast was happening. You had to get across the, those state lines. Yeah. Now this is the second record. This is Cool Kids. And so 1983, one of the questions I want to ask you about this is, so Brad Divins is on guitar on this album, and he's on your solo record as well, playing some bass.
Yeah.
Why did Ronnie not play on this album?
Same problem. He was battling addiction back then, and we were just getting ready to go to Miami to record this album, and we knew that we couldn't do it in the shape that he was in, so we had to replace him. We thought it was going to be a permanent replacement at the time, but he got better, and the record company was really urging us to talk to him and try to get him back into the band. So we did. And Brad gracefully bowed out and went on to do really good things with Wrathchild America, and he's just bounced all over the place. So reconnecting with Brad on this record was really special to me.
Yeah, I think that's a really kind of cool thing in that whole Kix universe, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, because he did go play bass and sing for Wrathchild for a while, and I believe now he does front of house mainly, right?
He does. He's ran front of house for a lot of big bands, but he's currently running front of house for Enrique Iglesias. He's been doing that for several years, which is a pretty big gig. And but he's been sitting at home the last year and a half like we were, and that's how we were able to get together and do this record.
You know, Steve, I'd say to everybody who comes on, the pandemic was what you made it. Of course, it's a horrible disease and there's a lot of people suffering. But if you're at home, you know, you could start a YouTube show. You can make a record. This was the time to get things done. And obviously you proved that by making, You're Welcome, the record.
Yeah, but I'm in the beginning of the pandemic in March, because I was still teaching at the time. And we had a whole bunch of gigs lined up for the summer. And when it all just stopped, it didn't feel that bad at first. I kind of like, oof, you know, it's kind of nice to be able to sit by the pool with my wife and enjoy the nice weather and the nice days and have friends and family over. So I really enjoyed it for the probably all summer long, up until when it got cold out and I couldn't use the pool anymore. That's when I'm like, okay, I need something to do. So along came Jimmy with this idea to record these songs with Brad, and it was therapeutic as hell for all of us.
I can only imagine, and it was using your time well. I got to ask you a question that has probably been answered a million times about some of the nicknames. I'm a kid. I go get a CD or a cassette, probably cassette, and I used to read the liner notes, and I would always say, Jimmy Chalfant, where does he get the nickname Chocolate?
Because nobody could pronounce Chalfant properly. It was always Chalfert, Chalafante. So Donnie just called him Chocolate one day, and it stuck.
Yeah, here it is. It's 40 years later. He still got it.
It's kind of cool. Jimmy Chocolate.
Yeah, and now Ronnie 1010 Younkins.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. Ronnie didn't do anything but on extreme. Everything was on 10. Amps on 10. Guitars on 10. Ronnie 1010.
Yeah, okay. That was an easy answer. And then Brian Damage Foresight is self-explanatory. So,
well, Bo Hill kind of gave that to him. Brian come in one day into the studio. He was just schlepping in. He could hardly keep his head up. He had a hangover from hell, and he come in and just flopped on a couch in front of the console. And Bo Hill stood up and looked over and goes, "Brain damage," and it just turned into Brian Damage, and it stuck.
That's a good segue, Steve. Bo Hill. This is Midnite Dynamite. Quick question I have about this record. This is 1985, by the way. We're jumping ahead. You're the only person on the cover of this record. Are your bandmates mad at you?
No, this whole album concept, or the album cover concept, when we would go into the studio, my hair was a lot longer then, and I would take the headphones and put the hair over the headphones and pull the headphones up, and my hair would do this. And the engineer at the time took a photo of it and put it on the console where we were working, and we just kept looking at that every day and laughing and going, "That's an album cover." And Donnie was all about it. He said, "Yep, let's just put Steve's wild ass crazy hair and give him a stick of dynamite singing into it. That's the perfect album concept."
Yeah, and it's become a famous cover. I mean, I asked the same thing to the guys with Twisted Sister about D being on the cover by himself, and they just kind of said, "Yeah, that was the photo that worked. Why not?"
No, the other guys had no problem with it.
Yeah, which is obviously cool that everyone's getting along and supportive of this idea. So Bo Hill, I've had a lot of people on the show who didn't get along with Bo Hill so well. I don't think you have that same story, though, because it's 35 years later now. You guys put this out again. It's called Relit, and you're going to be playing some of the deep tracks on the upcoming tour because the record was shut down a little bit during the pandemic, the anniversary. And so Bo Hill he kind of came across the masters and things. Is that right?
Actually, it was Mark Schenker who came across the masters. I forget how he stumbled onto it and got access and asked about those masters, and they said, "Yep, they're there if you want them." So there was a fee, but it wasn't very much. So Mark took, I think he took Midnight Dynamite, Blow My Fuse, and Hot Wire. I think he's got all of them. So when we re-released Blow My Fuse for Fuse 30, Bo Hill took it and remixed it and made it just sound much cleaner, much more contemporary. And then we saw Bo in Houston a couple years ago, and we were out with him at the bar having a few drinks after the show, and he said, I'd like to have another crack at Midnight Dynamite. I think I could clean that one up like I did on Blow My Fuse. And we said, go for it. So Bo's been a great friend. I've loved Bo since the first day I met him, and we're still really, really good friends to this day.
Yeah, that's great. But in Bo Hill fashion, there are some session players on this record.
Oh yeah,
Mike Slamer, who played a lot of the solos on Warrant's album. He's played some guitar on this album. Yeah. How does Bo present that to you, that he wants to bring somebody in?
Well, we were running out of time. Time was getting short, and it just seemed like Ronnie and Brian were getting intimidated by Donnie over their shoulders all the time, to the point where they couldn't come up with stuff fast enough. So Bo, he felt like his back was against the wall with the timing to get this thing done. So he brought Mike in to help out. And the same thing with Anton. Jimmy actually had to go and have a surgery on his neck because he was dropping drumsticks. He could hardly even play. So Jimmy had to go get a surgery, and Anton Fig came in and played on the last two tracks. That Jimmy got to go back in on the relay.
Yeah, and you're referring to Anton Fig, who was the drummer in David Letterman's band for ages, and he also played on the Fairly's Comet albums, and has had an amazing session career. So that's interesting. So Jimmy was getting surgery, and that's how Anton got involved with this.
Yep.
Okay, so this is a great record, and as you would say, this record is starting to bring more people in. You got videos, and I think people are starting to wake up to Kix a little bit.
Still not enough backing from the record label. They released Cold Shower off this record, and it was pretty much done. So we took it upon ourselves we made a video for Midnight Dynamite, and we just started taking all of our money that we made on the East Coast, because we could play from Boston to Miami and do well. So we would just stock up a pile of money and take ourselves out on the road with no tour support from the record label. And we would hit like Detroit, Chicago, and Cleveland, and Cincinnati, and go back home, make some more money, go back out, go to Texas, go Nashville. Just we supported ourselves, and it was during that time period that the guys in Poison got us out to LA. I mean, we got ourselves there, but they helped us out getting some shows out there. So I think the record company stood up and realized how hard we had worked to promote that album on our own, and we finally got their attention. That when Blow My Fuse was ready to come out, I think they were ready to push the magic button.
Yeah, and the Midnight Dynamite song was a good choice because it's become, a staple, and people really enjoyed it. And that video, I think people, it's a memorable video. And so
we made it ourselves. I mean, we made it at Mount St. Mary's College, and we shot it all day long, and then did a show after shooting the video all day long.
It's crazy to hear such a grassroots story from a band, that's on a major label, the label that had Led Zeppelin, but you guys are shooting.
Just because you're on a major label doesn't mean you're going to get major label treatment.
Did you ever feel any danger of getting dropped in that time?
No, because we knew our fan base was buying enough records that the record company was making money, but we weren't. I mean, we'd sell 80, 90, 100,000 copies, and, that's going to recoup their investment big time, but never enough to make us any money. So, we're making records in New York City and Miami, and then New York City again. It's like, and they're expensive studios to work in. So there's no way in hell we could ever recoup that money, and that's the way they keep you under their thumb.
Right. Yeah, and that's a story you hear constantly.
Sure.
The debt just keeps piling,
Well, it was our own stupidity. I mean, had we just made records in Baltimore, we actually would have made some money on those records. But we were going by what managers and A&R people were telling us to do, because we're just a bunch of dumb rednecks from Maryland.
Yeah. But the dumb rednecks from Maryland are finally about to get the attention they deserve. Blow My Fuse comes out. We're finally going to have a platinum record. You guys worked for it.
Yeah.
And the Cold Blood video starts to play. Headbangers Ball around this time, 1988, was really popular.
Right.
It was the thing. And if you had a video on there and you were good, fans were going to come and see you. One of the problems that I always saw for Kix, and I could be wrong, was that you never got on those tours where we got to see you so much. I lived in New York City, so you would play the Ritz and places like that headlining, but we never got to see you on those packages. Did that seem like a problem to you guys?
Well, I mean, we were just happy to be on any tour. And I know we only got to play, like, I think we started with Rat and Brittany Fox. We got 30 minutes. Then we did Great White and Tesla. I think we got 45 minutes. And then we did Whitesnake. So we got those tours, and it got us into arenas, and it got us out in front of a lot of people. So, you know, it paid off, but we were just happy to be there. We weren't looking for anything more, but we were just happy to be there.
Tell me the story about how Don't Close Your Eyes gets chosen as a single.
We're out with Great White and Tesla, and the manager at the time, Great White, now his name's going to go right out of my head. But
Alan Niven.
Alan Niven, thank you. He was watching our set, and when we come off the stage, he stopped us and said, "What's that ballad you guys played?" And we told him it was Don't Close Your Eyes. He said, "Why is that not a single?" We said, "Ask Doug Morris." He said, "I will." So he called Doug Morris, president of Atlantic Records, and said, "You're sitting on a hit song. You got to get this out." So the next week we're shooting a video for Don't Close Your Eyes, and the rest is history. It's the biggest song of our lives.
Yeah, and you didn't put out a cheesy love song. That's a deep song.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And obviously touched a lot of people as well. And this record takes off. So, and listen, this wasn't the end. 91, you make the Hotwire album. At that point, music was changing. I think one of the good things about Kix, though, is that you guys weren't, a glam band or whatever, a fad band. You guys kind of had that AC/DC, Aerosmith rock and roll sound, which was never going to go away. And you show it now at your shows that music is timeless and it's fun. And you're one of the bands that I don't think you have to even know the catalog. You're going to go to a Kix show. You're going to have a good time.
Well, our live show was always our get over. It was our staple. People who had never seen the band, if they saw the band live, they were fans. So it wasn't our string of hits because we didn't have a string of hits, but we could kick ass on stage.
That reputation stayed with your band forever.
Yeah, it does.
It must be pressure at times because everybody says you have to see Kix. I went to the M3 festival. You guys headline a night every year because that's your hometown, Maryland, and the fans love you guys. Are so passionate about it, but the music is timeless. And you guys still put on that show that everyone tells me and tells everyone you've got to see Kix play.
Yeah, everybody, we take it very seriously. We don't know how to mail it in. Everybody is preparing backstage. I do like an hour stretching, warm up, vocal thing before I go out. Everybody's practicing. We're talking about, little bits that I might do. If you break a string, I got to have something ready to yak about to the crowd. So it's all about giving a shit and not mailing it in, because we've seen so many bands mail it in and it disgusts me.
And you make it look easy, though. You know what I mean? Obviously, you put work into it, but when you guys play, it just looks like effortless. And
that's the chemistry of Kix. I mean, that's just what we've always done. So it comes easy to us, not believe it or not.
Yeah, well, it sure seems that way. And so, Steve, the solo record's out. Do you think that somewhere down the line you'll make another Kix record?
I think so. Right now, it's the business end of it you have to look at, because in order to have Taylor Rhodes involved, his fee is pretty steep, and we don't expect him to do it for nothing. So you got to weigh it out. I mean, we can record for relatively nothing, but having Brian flying from Nashville and paying Taylor Rhodes, and it's like, can we recoup the money? Because it's not about making money; it's about not losing money. So I guess all that would have to be worked out. And if we can do it and feel confident enough that people are going to buy the damn thing, we'd love giving fans new music, but it's got to make good business sense as well.
Yeah, and I can see that. And I think, you'll find out. We'll see how the solo record does. Hopefully it's going to do well, and you guys will get out and you'll play some shows. And then obviously we hope, Ronnie's health.
Right.
Because, you guys have not fired him from the band.
No, the door's open. You know, it's all up to him now. If he can get himself and his life straightened out, you know, the door's open.
Yeah, and that's the most supportive thing you could do from someone who is suffering and has suffered for such a long time.
Yeah.
So let's make sure that everybody knows about You're Welcome, because that's what we're here to talk about. Solo record, it is out right now. So you go into the description and you click on the link and you buy this. Imagine that concept. You can buy new music, all original. Yeah, all original. 12 songs. There's not a song over 4 minutes. You'll be singing you know.
Oh, I got another interview coming in.
Okay. What do we do, Steve? This is the perfect.
Can I accept this and ask him to call me back?
I think so. Let's see what happens.
Hello.
Hello, is this Steve?
This is Steve. Hey, Jason, I'm finishing up an interview. Can you give me like 5 more minutes and call me back?
Absolutely, no problem.
Thank you very much.
All right, talk to you soon.
All right. Sorry about that.
That was Howard Stern. It was very nice. I told Howard Stern, yeah, I got 5 minutes. Anyway, listen, I know you're on a tight schedule because this is how we promote music these days. You come and you hit these things and you talk a lot about it, but you know what? This is your love and, you know, this is your baby. We got to promote this thing and let people hear it. And for fans who've been sitting home looking for some new music, this is a great piece to get.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope people like it, buy it, and enjoy it, and, you know, give me feedback on it. And if it does well enough, you know, there might be a volume 2 down the road.
Absolutely. And you're welcome. For those who don't know, I don't know how you couldn't. If you're a Kix fan on the stage, Steve says thank you to the audience. They say you're welcome back. It goes back and forth. That's where the title comes from. The stick figure drawing has been Steve's autograph for 30 years or so, right?
Yeah, since the first album. During in-stores, all the fans would say, write something special, say something special to me. And I ran out after about 3 hours. So I said, I'm going to give you a self-portrait. And I drew that little stick man. And then it took off from there. Everybody wants a stick man when I sign something. When
you sign this CD for the fans who are going to bring it to the shows, do you draw the stick figure again?
No, I say, you already got it.
Right. Half your work, you made it easier on yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Kix is on the road this year, celebrating 35 years of Midnite Dynamite. Here's some deep tracks. You don't want to miss it. Go see Kix. They live up to the reputation. And Steve, I really appreciate you joining me today.
My pleasure, Jason. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. See you soon. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.